Hi there, ready to create a new project inspired by a card? Come join me and I'll show you how to create a color focused notebook layout. So see you in a bit. Hi there, Natalie with you today with a new Inspired by a Card with Natalie episode. And in today we're going to use the new Crafty Life Project Kit Rose Garden to create a layout that is completely focused on the colors that are on the picture that are going to be on this layout. So the inspiration from this card comes from Ishani in the latest blog hop, and I love the way she has set up the card, and that gave me an idea to create my layout. So I'm starting by creating my flowers. This is the Craft Your Life Project Kit Garden Rose, and I'm going to use Obsidian black ink to stamp the outlines of the flowers. Now to create the colors inside the flowers, I'm going to use actually two different colors of pink. I am using pink pearl and also baby pink to stamp the first layer of my roses. Those just are the colors that the photo that I'm going to use for this layout show. You're going to see it after the picture. Once I have the first layer stamped, I'm going to come in with the second step. That's the one that's just going to add definition to the petals. And I'm going to use Coral Bliss to that corally ones, and Puffy Heart for the more pink ones. Once I have them all ready, I'm gonna set them aside and use the die cut, my die cutting machine and the coordinating die to just cut them apart. Now the fun part is when it comes to creating the leaves. And if you see Shani's card, she has created really saturated leaves, and they have like an ombre effect. So because I am, like I said, limited to my color palette, and I want to be very specific about it, I want to focus on that color, I'm actually gonna create ombre, an ombre effect for my leaves. So for that, I'm going to use the Crafty Your Life Project Kit Rose Garden coloring stencil set, and I'm going to use that little set of 3 leaves that come together to show you how it's going to go about it. And I am using the inks from the Seashore mini ink cube set. I just want the 4 colors in that to be the ones that are going to create the ombre effect. So simple as that. I have a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to set my stencil in place and bring in my ink blending brush, my ink blending tool, sorry, the small one. I'm just going to dab the ink blending tool on some of the ink and then go in a circular motion on top of the stencil to create the impression. Now I'm starting with mountain mist, but along the way I'm going to add a little bit of volcano lake just to create that depth of color. And then the second leaf is gonna be volcano lake and a little bit of lagoon, and then I'm gonna do the same thing with all of them. So I'm gonna use the 4 colors, and it's gonna give me that ombre effect on the leaves. Once I have them ready, I'm gonna use black obsidian ink to stamp the outline on top of each one of the stencil leaves. Now here's the fun part. This is stencil. If you see the stamp set, there is a mirror image onto of the leaves. So to create that with the stencil, all you have to do is just clean your stencil and flip your stencil, and you'll be able to create the leaves. And that's what I did. And then I went ahead and created a leaf of each one of the colors or the inks of each one of the leaves in the stamp set. So then I took them to the die cutting machine and had them ready. Now the fun part, and why I was so attracted to Ishani's card, is the way that she created the little diagonal design, the little diagonal design on her card. For that, she's using the layering the coloring stencil. Again, this is from the Craft Your Life Project Kit Garden Rose. I'm using the coloring stencil, and I'm going to use in the stencil number 2, there's some diagonal lines. There's that pattern in the stencil. I'm going to use those to create that grid design on cardstock. So I'm going to get white cardstock, and I'm actually going to use icy water crisp dye ink because that's the color that's very prominent in the photo that I'm using. So simply lay the stencil, use my ink blending tool. I'm gonna dab my ink blending tool on some of the ink and go in a circular motion, and that's gonna create the impression of the diagonal lines. I'm gonna do that at the 2 corners of my cardstock. If you see Shani's card, she has a grid. So simple to create the grid is just to flip my stencil 90 degrees, and that's going to give me that crisscross effect. Now because when you do that, the lines that are going in the opposite direction are not going to fit the entire stencil, and that's okay. That means that we're going to have to shift the stencil a little bit. So make sure you use some washi tape, or I'm using post-it tape just to keep it in place, and you're going to have to shift the stencil to create those lines. And this is just easy because it's a linear design, so you can shift it and it works all fine. Once I have that, I'm going to set that aside to dry a little bit, and then I'm going to start building my page. Now if you see Shani's card, she actually is using her card panel, or her card is actually pink, and then she has the white card panel. Instead, I'm actually going to use my pink, I'm bringing a paper. This is from the Enjoy the Ride collection, and I just cut 2 of the pieces to 7.5 by 9, which is the piece the size of my notebook, and I'm going to go ahead and trim those triangles out. Instead of Ashani had little rectangles of white with the grid at the bottom, I'm going to trim them away because I just want to create a little bit of interest on my page. Once I have my triangles trimmed, I'm actually going to glue them around 1/4 of an inch from the left and 1/4 of an inch from the bottom of the left hand side of the page. I'm going to glue one of the triangles there, and then I'm going to use the roses that I created to literally cover that diagonal line, starting from edge to edge. Now here's the key. I'm going to make sure that the leaves that go behind the flowers have that ombre effect. So I'm going to go from really light on the left edge to the darkest tone at the bottom edge. So again, I'm not using any dimension here. I'm just going to glue my flowers straight onto the paper, and I'm going to repeat the same procedure for the other side of the paper. But keep in mind that on the other page of my notebook, I need to add my photo. So what I did to my photo is just added a piece of vellum behind it, and then I'm going to glue it right on the center of my page. That means that it's going to take a little bit of that little triangular piece that I created with the ink blending. Instead of going on a straight diagonal line with the flowers, that means it's gonna cover my picture. Instead, I'm gonna use my flowers to kind of create a C around the photo. So it's gonna look like the flowers are hugging the photo. And again, I'm gonna follow the same idea of creating the leaves in in that ombre effect, but I'm gonna do the opposite as the bottom. So I'm gonna go from dark at the top of the page to light on the right hand side of the page. You're gonna see that literally my flowers are gonna create a C shape around the picture. Once I have that, it's all about adding details. For my title, I am using the All About You words die set, and I cut the word hello out of white cardstock and the word you out of glimmer cardstock. I added some double adhesive tape behind it from Altenew, just to make sure that I can peel and stick them. I cut the offset out of vellum, so I'm gonna glue them together, and then I'm gonna add my title right on the bottom left corner of my photo. So the word hello is gonna go on top of my photo, and you is gonna be underneath. Now I need to add a sentiment, and for that I'm gonna use the Shine Like a Star stamp set, and I'm using black obsidian ink to stamp the sentiment that says sparkle, and then the second sentiment like a star today and always. So that's gonna be this kind of the sentiment or the co-title of this page. Once I have that, I need to add my lines to journal, and I'm actually gonna do it on the left hand side right on top of the flowers. I'm just gonna draw the lines and do it with my fine liner, and then I'm gonna bring the Build Your Flower Lelia, which is the latest Build a Flower. Yeah, it's the Build a Flower Lelia, and then I'm gonna stamp 2 of the sentiments, one right underneath my lines to journal, and the other one in the little space that the flowers form on the grid design. Once I have that, I need to add a little bit of more interest that connects the 2 sides together, and for that I'm gonna use pure white ink from Altenew. I'm just gonna make sure that I kind of sprinkle my drops of ink so that it connects the 2 pages together, and that's about it. All I have to do is just glue it onto my notebook. I'm gonna make sure that I glue it once the ink dries, and that's about it. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, if you have any questions, you can check the blog for more details. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.